Hi again, everybody, and welcome to this week's Ingles Furman Radio Network preview. After a week off, Clay Hendricks' Furman Paladins on the road for a game at VMI on Saturday afternoon. In fact, 3 of the final 4 games of the regular season will be road games for the Paladins. 1:30 kickoff in Lexington, Virginia. Afternoon football on Saturday. The Paladins 2-5 overall, 1-2 in the SoCon, and VMI still looking for win number 1. They are 0-8 overall, 0-4 in the league. I am Dan Scott, the voice of the Paladins, kind of giving you a little bit of an idea of some of the storylines we're following from a radio perspective as David Cobb and I get set to bring you all the action on Saturday from Alumni Field in Lexington. And the Paladins, after that week off, hoping that they have been able to rest up, get some guys a little bit healthier, perhaps, and go up and, for the first time this season, talking with Clay Hendricks, put 4 full quarters of football together. I know that Riley Herbert defensively will be back in the lineup, probably still a week, maybe 2 away for Luke Clark coming back on the defensive side of the ball, and some other guys who are still banged up but playing through the normal bumps and bruises that you have during this time of season. All of the injuries have, of course, as we have talked about the last few weeks, meant that you have a bunch of young players, true freshmen and redshirt freshmen, who were 3 and 4 on the depth chart at year's beginning, who are now in 1 and 2 spots, and had a really intriguing conversation with Justin Roper about some of that. You'll hear that talk during the Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff on Saturday, but talking about not only the continued maturation of his freshman quarterback in Trey Hedden, and how that process works from a confidence standpoint, maybe seeing it dip a little bit and now starting to build back up. But also on the fly, trying to develop chemistry with his wide receivers. And he pointed out that you saw even in the loss to Western Carolina, Colton Hinton kind of had a breakout game at the wide receiver spot, and the trust that's developed between those two. You've got so many young guys, again, in spots that they were not in at the beginning of the season, that takes time, and it takes not just reps, but it takes good reps and trying to develop that chemistry on the fly. It's a conversation you're going to want to hear on the Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff. Talking with Dwayne Vaughn, the defensive coordinator, again, just trying to get his team to understand 4 full quarters, and a little bit different because of injuries, not having the depth that they've had in the past, especially the past 2 years, which nobody in the country had as much depth as Furman the last 2 years, last year especially. But the youth, the inexperience, the lack of depth, and guys having to play, some of them as many as 70 or 80 snaps a game, as opposed to maybe half or 3/4 of that total. Playing with a Western Carolina team, that game was, a 7-point game with a couple of minutes to go in the first half. Trying to get them to understand what it takes to go from here to here. And talking about VMI, when you look at the fact that they're winless and struggling, we'll look at the numbers in a moment. Furman, as you might imagine, players looking at that game and saying, okay, here's a game that we can and probably should go win. But as Dwayne reminded his defense this week, he said that they can look at the fact that we've given up over 90 points combined in our last 2 games. I guarantee you they have circled a game, or this game on their schedule, as one that they can win. So in the SoCon, as pretty much like life, you take nothing for granted. It has been a VMI team that has struggled, though. Statistically, sometimes as we talk about, numbers can tell the story. Sometimes they can't. This has been pretty accurate to this point of the season, offensively averaging just 210.5 yards per game, 96 on the ground, 114 through the air. They are, like Furman, -7 in the turnover differential and only convert 23.5% of their third down opportunities. That is actually less than Furman, who has struggled on third down offensively this year at 28%. And like the Paladins, they are riding right now a true freshman quarterback in Brady Hammonds, who has thrown for 485 yards, 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. They've run through 2 or 3 different quarterbacks this year. They've all been young guys, but Hammonds is the one that they have settled on here of late to try to give them a little bit of stability in their offense. Their running back, Hunter Rice, is a veteran guy who has been around for a while. He has 500 yards rushing and 4 rushing touchdowns so far this season. And when you look at him defensively, numbers-wise, they give up 33.6 points a game, 388, almost 389 yards a game, 161 on the ground, 227 through the air. And defensively, they allow the opponents to convert third down 40% of the time. So that may be one of the games inside the game when you look at Furman converting offensively 28% of third downs, VMI allowing defensively 40% conversion rate on third down. Can Furman do better in winning that battle this week? That will be one of those little subplots to watch as we move forward. From a Paladin standpoint, we mentioned the return of Raleigh Herbert defensively this week, and the offense just trying to get more and more reps for their young quarterback, for their freshman wide receivers, and trying to find some consistency in the running game. You know, Mayan Hicks, you go back to the first play, I think it was, of the second half against Western Carolina, was injured in that game and didn't play the rest of the second half, but he has practiced all week. He should be in the starting lineup, and we should see more of freshman Gavin Hall in the backup role. He is a guy who gives them another dimension coming out of the backfield as a true freshman. It's been kind of exciting to watch. The game on the natural turf at VMI, I've talked to a couple of different people this week. Dwayne Vaughn and I had an extended conversation about it. There's something about going up there and playing. The atmosphere is usually not great. Fortunately, the weather is supposed to be good on Saturday, but we've been there on days where it's been gray and overcast and sometimes even rainy. That field can get in bad shape. It's the natural grass. Fortunately, that hasn't been the case, at least so far this season. But I just, again, it's a perception thing. And talking to Dwayne, but I told him, watching it from the booth, I've always thought that even though we've had a lot of success up there, we look a step slow on that field. Probably just perception, but they'll be looking to fly around on both sides of the ball this week. Let's take a look at the SoCon standings as they are coming into play this week. Mercer and Chattanooga at 4-1 at the top of the league. ETSU and Western Carolina both at 3-1. Samford at 2-2, the Citadel 2-4, and then there's Furman at 1-2, Wofford 1-4, and VMI, as we mentioned, 0-4. And when you flip it to the schedule, besides Furman VMI at 1:30, you've got the one-loss teams pairing off against one another this week. Chattanooga at Western at 2:30 p.m. and ETSU at Mercer at 3 o'clock, and then there's Wofford at Samford at 3 p.m. as well. So we could start to see a little bit of separation in the standings, and if Furman wins, suddenly 2 of those teams that have one loss are going to drop back into the 2-loss category again with 3 games remaining in the regular season. It is going to be an entertaining final month of this regular season coming down the stretch, I would think. From a broadcast standpoint, the game will be on ESPN+. We would prefer, you can watch it obviously, but turn the sound down and listen to the radio broadcast. And there's all kinds of ways you can sync up the online radio with the online TV broadcast. But our Pepsi Countdown to Kickoff will begin at noon on Saturday from VMI with the kickoff at 1:30. Look forward to having you on board with us as the Paladins try to get back on the winning side of things, get their second conference win of the season, get the conference record back to 500 heading into the final 3 games of the year. Noon airtime, 1:30 kick, Furman and VMI in Lexington on Saturday. Look forward to having you with us if you can't make the trip, and we'll talk to you from Alumni Field on Saturday. For all of us here at Furman, I'm Dan Scott. God bless you, and so long, everybody.